Excellent. Thank you, Camille. I think we'll give it another couple of minutes here as folks join us and get things kicked off. Many of your faces today. I think we still have a few people that are maybe getting pulled over from the participant side. And I only see maybe 6 now members of SPC. So we'll kind of slow walk things here as folks jump in and begin to join us. Maybe before I do, I'll just go ahead and do roll call now. I think we're still waiting on a couple of more participants, but I will go ahead and roll call the folks who I see so far. This is Leah Rausch. I am present. Marianne.
Present.
Good evening, Marianne. Welcome. Jerry Gatus. Hello, I see a wave. Thanks, Jerry. Caitlin.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Alma?
Present.
Thanks, Alma. Pete?
Present.
Welcome, Pete. And then I do see Philip joining us here, so we'll give him another minute while he is connecting to his audio. Before we get started, I don't know if I have any preliminary remarks, but I know that Caitlin, the chair of the board, does have some remarks about some recent events that LTD has been partnering on. So I will throw it over to her to give us a quick update.
Thank you, Leah. And hi, everyone. I apologize for the kids in the back. So those are shrieks of share really quick. So today, LTD was the host for Chairman Peter DeFazio and the U.S. Secretary of the State, Buttigieg. And so huge kudos to LTD staff. They went just having we're smiling
Caitlin.
Water.
Hey, Caitlin, we're having a really hard time hearing you. You're breaking up quite a bit.
Oh, no.
You might turn off your video and just go to audio. That helps sometimes.
Yeah, that might help.
Okay. Sounding better.
Yes.
I think so.
Yes, better. Okay. Did you hear me singing the praises of the LTD staff?
No.
Maybe try one more time.
Oh. Trying to say what a great job. My audio seems to be having problems. Okay.
Yeah.
AJ, you do.
I'll do it. Chair, if it's okay with you, I will go ahead and kind of pass along the message that the president is trying to pass along. So today we had an amazing event. We were told very last minute of an event that needed to take place in which LTD needed to be a part of. And our board president is trying to give kudos to the LTD team for really pulling it off flawlessly as we hosted the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg and Chairman Peter DeFazio. And they were talking about transportation and transportation infrastructure funding. So it was an exciting time for LTD to showcase the great work it's doing and to talk about the electrification that we have of our fleet. Both the chairman and the secretary were able to drive a electric bus. So it was a fun time. Today, there was a lot of press, a lot of media that showed up. It was pulled together flawlessly, and we are very excited for doing that. As part of that, the chairman and the secretary wanted to host labor, our unions from the area that participate in good infrastructure. So we were able to have a large group that we knew nothing about, and we're able to just welcome them and make them feel that honored to be part of the event. So it was a great event. We're happy to be part of it. And as you know, this committee plays an important role in leading LTD, you know, towards the future. And that's really what we were talking about, is how does future funding help support the important decisions that need to be made to continue to support the community's transportation system, but also the infrastructure of that system. So thank you all for what you do. You didn't know, but you were a part of that in some way. So thank you all.
Excellent. Thank you, AJ, and thank you, Caitlin. We got the gist of what you were trying to say and the kudos you were trying to share. So we appreciate it. I don't have any other remarks to get us started. Other than that, I'm really excited. The day is here to kind of give final feedback and remarks on the strategic business plan that I know staff have been working on relentlessly for the last several months. So excited to have you all here to participate in that. At the end of our agenda, I do want to note that it's not on the agenda that was shared out, but we'll be talking a little bit about leadership and upcoming elections for SPC. So I'm going to stay tuned for that at the end of our meeting. If there's nothing else, I will go ahead and jump into audience participation. I do want to recognize that, Philip, I think you were able to join us on audio, so welcome. We're excited to have you. Okay, so audience participation, public comment. This part of the agenda is reserved for members of the public to address the committee on any issue. So I'll just go through the following instructions on how you can do that if you're interested today. So to indicate that you would like to provide testimony, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. For those attending via phone only, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it is your time to speak, your name will be called. And for those attending via phone only, the last 4 digits of your number will be called. Before beginning your public comment, if you can state your name, your city of residence, and who you're representing for the audio record. And then once you've provided testimony, your hand will be lowered. Please don't raise your hand again. Only one opportunity to speak will be provided this evening. For those unable or not wanting to speak publicly, testimony can be provided via email to clerk@ltd.org. With that, public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per community member. If as needed, we'll pull up the timer to show you when that 3 minutes is up. Okay, if we have anybody who would like to give public comment, you can go ahead and raise your hand now.
Leah, I'm not showing anyone indicating they would like to speak tonight.
Okay, thanks, Camille, and thank you to anyone who is either listening in today or watching on Metro TV. We're looking forward to the engagement. Okay, I think with that, we'll go ahead and hand it over to the LTD and their team for the strategic business plan draft plan review.
Yeah, if I can just say a couple things. Lindsay's going to lead the presentation tonight, but I wanted to just say we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight, and looking for you to develop a recommendation to the board for their action, which would take place next Wednesday. I'm also, Kim should be here. We're trying to find out where she's at, and otherwise, Lindsay, why don't you get going? Oh, and I guess one more thing. I know I talked to Greg Evans today, and he said he was going to be a little late, but that he'll be here. So we'll look for him as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for having us to share the latest of the strategic business plan. So we are actually showing on the screen a slightly more updated version of this than what's in your packet. There are no substantial changes. It's mostly cosmetic, but I will point those out as we go through the plan. But want to just underscore just how appreciative the team is of your involvement throughout the process and the time that you volunteered. As we've highlighted in here in the plan, well over 500 hours of staff time has gone into the development of this plan. And we also really do appreciate, again, the fact that you're spending your evenings at least once a month to contribute to this, in addition to reviewing materials. So really appreciate your support of this. Oh, sorry. Let me just share a more highlighted version of this. Hang on. Hold on one second. Is that better? Is that just showing full screen of the plan? Okay, great. So as I was saying, we're excited to discuss this final version that's getting really close to being ready to present in front of the full board for consideration of adoption. I know the team is also really excited. They've been having some meetings with folks in social media and other areas that are really brainstorming how to roll this out, how to connect everyone's work to it. So there's a lot of excitement internally about this as well. Just wanted to go through really quickly and kind of scan through, but want to get your feedback, of course, in any places that we want to skip to for discussion, answering questions. I'll try to field questions that I can. Otherwise, I will invite other members of the LTD team to chime in as well. So the organization of this, as you know, really starts with the introduction from the general manager. There's an executive summary. We get into the work plan where you really see the milestones and the tactics that the LTD team will work on really cross-functionally to actionalize the plan. And so this is something that provides you all with an ability to really provides you an ability to be able to track their progress towards really important tactics, and also provides the LTD team with an ability to see how their work and measure progress on whether the work that they're doing is actually producing the intended outcomes. The performance scorecard then is the last piece of this, and that is where the specific performance metrics that will be measured on a quarterly basis will be tracked. And again, this is something that the LTD team will actually be reporting back to you all on a quarterly basis, as well as to the board. And it gives everyone a sense of whether we're trending in the right direction. And if we're not, what adjustments can we possibly make to be able to achieve those goals and ultimately deliver those overarching success outcomes in the strategic areas of focus. In regards to the introduction letter, one comment that we received from this group was to expand some of the context in the letter. So the wildfires, in addition to the pandemic, are mentioned as unprecedented challenges that the team and the community has faced, and that LTD has really adapted to and responded to, and is informing a lot of the work that they're doing going forward. In the executive summary, the main update here is, as you can see some of your faces in the plan. So we wanted to capture the spirit of this virtual engagement. Usually when we're going through plans like this, we do a lot more in-person, on-site engagement when we're all in the same room. But you all have been just great and participatory via the virtual platform, so really do appreciate that. And again, this highlights really living the values of the plan already just in developing the plan. So highlighting a couple of those key values, collaboration, equity, in the engagement of the Diversity Council to really dig in. And that was some of the early feedback that you all really challenged the team to be thinking about. It's a topic that's been important nationally and certainly important locally. And that's something that has been adjusted in direct response to some of the insightful comments that you all have brought to the team. Going forward, this is a little cosmetic change, if you will, that is not in the draft that we shared. We'll also be adding a couple of staff quotes throughout the plan, but from your board chair, Caitlin Vargas, has a quote about the strategic business plan. As I mentioned, we will, before bringing this to the board, there will be a couple of staff quotes that are also sprinkled in the plan just to help personalize it and really bring it to life again. That there are real people who have a lot of passion and have put a lot of time and energy into the plan. So that's something that we will be highlighting in the final. And I also want to underscore in this section that you all really did have an impact on having the voice of the community in the plan, not only from the roles that you all represent, but really challenging the team to obtain additional stakeholder groups in the process. And so the team did go out, made phone calls, made personal touches to encourage additional folks to participate in the survey and provide feedback. So that's something we reported back to the board, that additional participants did provide response to the survey. So really appreciate your, you're challenging the team to ensure that they were reaching out to more voices. So that is also reflected in this effort, and is something that the team has really expressed will be a part of the ongoing implementation of the plan. So, as you go through, a lot of the success outcomes and performance metrics are reliant upon actually outreach and surveying the community, and that's how we actually will have a sense of how well LTD is achieving its outcomes. So communication and engagement is hugely important and will be continuing to be a focus of the team in implementation of the plan as well. The mission, vision, and values, we talked about how mission, the connecting our community, particularly the connecting, has come up again and again as a really key theme. A lot of the why of why you all are passionate about what you're doing as SPC members. It really aligns with why a lot of the staff are doing what they do, and the importance of the community and providing those connections, whether it's jobs, educational opportunities, recreation, just really plays a central role in being able to provide that access to the community. And then the vision statement we've updated. The team did make that change to add stronger language. So the vision statement now reads, "In all that we do, we are committed to creating a more connected, sustainable, and equitable community. These again are themes that have come up again and again in conversations as important themes in the survey and a lot of the dialogues that have occurred, and really underscoring not just seeking, but actually being committed to this as a vision. As we mentioned, there are 6 values that the team is going to really keep themselves accountable for living and demonstrating. So we shared earlier on in the process that really across the organization through the Inside the Bus forums, a lot of employees did participate directly in formulating these. So there's a lot of personal passion, and it really is reflective of the values that the team not only embodies today, but really strives to excel at. And we've witnessed that just in engaging with them, and I'm sure you all have as well. And again, the places that we particularly made some adjustments to throughout the process were around the equity value, which was originally formulated as a diversity value. And then also safety is something that we've heard as being a really important theme. And that's something that the LTD team as well, in every single department meeting that we engaged in, it was brought up as being really critical to LTD success. So those are the values that staff will engage in on an ongoing basis. Also, since the last time we met, staff has really put some time and thinking into setting particular goals in regards to the success outcomes. So as you'll recall, these 5 areas are the primary areas that staff is going to be focused on delivering over the next 3 years. So the first is customer satisfaction and delivering a Net Promoter Score of 55%. I think we had shared the Net Promoter Score concept. Essentially, it's calculated by the percent of promoters minus the percent of detractors. It's essentially the willingness to recommend LTD service to a friend or neighbor, or relative. And it's an industry, not only transit agencies use it, but also across industries, many service organizations, private and public, use it. And LTD has conducted customer surveys through the American Bus Benchmarking Group. So based on their current performance, they've set a target of 55%, which I can tell you is much higher than many transit agencies that we work with. So the scale goes anywhere from negative 100% to positive 100%. So 55 is actually very, very high on the scale. Employee engagement. The employee engagement would be a score of 65%. This one is a little more tricky to nail down. I know we had some conversations about this with your group, and certainly the internal LTD team has had a lot of discussion around this. So what we've settled on is that it will be a composite of 3 key indicators. It will come from the employee survey, which LTD does do periodic surveys of the workforce. It would include things like the understanding of how employee performance is linked to LTD success, agreement that LTD leadership is invested in employee success, and agreement that employees are provided the tools needed to work successfully. And these are components that are linked to, in the literature, to employee engagement. And we know that employee engagement really drives things like customer satisfaction, community value, financial health, and other factors as well. So that is how, and the actual target of 65% is looking at the previous surveys and the closest matched up questions, what the past performance was, and really setting the goal based on that. Community value. So for this one, LTD doesn't have a recent baseline. And so for this, the goal this first round is really to establish that baseline through conducting a community survey that that is representative and inclusive. And then once that baseline is set for the percent of the community that believes that LTD brings value, is to then improve that by at least 5%. In financial health, that outcome is defined as achievement of the 3-year rolling financial plan targets. So essentially making sure that whatever resources that we say we're going to work within, that is what we actually perform to. So that discipline financially to deliver within the plan. And then finally, sustainability. This is something that LTD had committed to even before the strategic business plan, but continues to be a really important element of success. So that is within the next 3 years, staff thought through how they could take that longer term goal and where they expected to be by the end of 3 years. And that would be a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions of 70%. So those are the overall targets for the success outcomes. And again, these are really important because at the end of the day, these are the big major areas where we want to look back and say, if we're able to make progress on these, it means that we're doing something right. It means we're delivering really good value to our customers, our employees, our community, and our planet. So we really want to underscore that all of the tactics, all of the performance metrics, they're all in service of really excelling in these major outcome areas. And they all really work together. So I know we've had conversation about, how these pieces get prioritized or how one really can impact another, or how a particular tactic actually could impact multiple success outcomes. So this graphic is really intended to show how they really are part of the same set of gears that work together, and really success in one area is very much tied to success in other areas. And together, all of these really allow LTD to achieve that mission of connecting our community. So as you can see, the plan is organized around these success outcomes. And the team did identify a primary tactic and performance metrics in each of these areas. So recognizing that we could probably move things around and put a particular tactic in another category, the most important thing is to make sure that across all of these that we're really covered and we're doing the right work and measuring the right things to have success in these areas. So that's really what the team was striving to achieve through the plan. The work plan, again, that's where we give you all a peek into the weeds and the details of what the LTD team does and how they plan to tackle a lot of these projects and initiatives, some more internal facing and some more external facing. And a lot of these you will be key players in. So I know as the year goes on, there are certain key projects and initiatives that I know the team is going to be looking for your guidance on as representatives of the community, who can help them ensure that as they're deploying these, that they are doing it in a way that is mindful of the priorities of the community as well. So Tom and Cosette had actually shared a couple of these at the last meeting. I'll just share a couple of structural changes. I won't go through all of these in detail unless there's anyone has particular questions about a particular tactic, but want to first mention this first page in front of each of these. I'm not sure if it was there when we first went through this the last time, but just a summary page in each strategic area so that it's clear at one glance what's comprised of that particular strategic area. So you can see these are the primary customer satisfaction related work tactics that you'll find in this section. Another change we made was more cosmetic, and that had to do with how this was organized on the page, making it really clear which strategic area it was impacting. So that's where the colors and this little tab at the top come in. Before, if you recall, it was kind of similar font to the title and it was kind of hidden under here. So really trying to make it clear which strategic area it's impacting. And then the owners have been updated so that there is a specific director in their role. So that there's clarity around within LTD, who is the primary owner of this tactic. Within each of these, there's a team. Often it's cross-functional, so it's ensuring that these tactics aren't being done in silos. But in terms of having a primary point of contact, wanted to make sure that it was really clear and transparent who at LTD is going to be overall owning each of these tactics. And then each of the tactics, again, this is really for transparency and for LTD to be able to monitor and report back to groups like yours and to the board on progress as on a quarterly basis. And so a lot of these, as we had mentioned before, may have some things that are more jargon for LTD, but it's really more so to just have that level of transparency so that the community can see what LTD is up to, what they're striving to achieve on a quarterly basis. I'm going to skip ahead now just to the performance scorecard. So the performance scorecard, as we mentioned, at an organizational level, it's organized around these outcome areas, and overall customer satisfaction metrics total up to 30 points. The employee engagement metrics total up to 25 points. And it's really underscored again in the letter from the general manager in the front of the plan. There's a lot of discussion and there's actually a lot of movement around the priorities, but really came from a people first strategy in terms of coming out of the pandemic, coming out of this really challenging time, knowing that customers are really critical. We want to make sure we're delivering high quality service to people who need our services, and it's really critical to us achieving sustainability goals as well. And that in order to do that, our employees have to be well taken care of. We want to be thank them and have gratitude for all of the work that they've done, and continue to be engaged and ultimately be an employer of choice within not only the local area, but as a transit agency. Following that, community value, we've talked about it really, the way the team is thinking about this is that by way of excellence in customer satisfaction and comprehensively throughout the strategic plan, that's going to demonstrate and build confidence to deliver that community value. So there are certainly areas within the community value metric that that we'll share in more detail with the performance metric. Really want to emphasize that this continues to be, again, one of the most important areas for LTD to focus. Financial health has a number of metrics and indicators for making sure that LTD is performing financially and will be able to continue within its financial resources. And then sustainability, really achieving those environmental goals, so that together, this is really a comprehensive guidebook to success. And we've made a change to the formatting of this. I'm actually going to expand my screen a little bit to make it more readable. Previously, it had been on 2 pages, but we've just put it in there as a horizontal page so that it's more clear and it can be read straight across. So what you'll see, again, the primary strategic area, the specific performance metric, the goal, and you'll notice a lot of these are establishing baseline, but once a baseline is set, the team will be coming back and sharing goals. This is something that will be revisited in particular more often than than the 3-year. This is where there will be data starting to populate really as early as Q2. We have Q1 through Q4 listed here, but based on the timing of adoption, I'm really expecting the first report out to be in Q2 of this fiscal year. So once we start getting baseline, some of these will take some time to get set up if the information system doesn't exist yet, or, you know, obviously conducting something like a statistically valid survey can take time and resources and procurement. So some of these will take some time to actually get that data in. But as it comes in, we'll be able to share with your group and with the board, and of course with the LTD team as a whole, to continuously monitor and track trends over time. And then similar to the tactics, there is an owner assigned. So it's really clear. We know that a lot of these metrics are going to have multiple departments are going to contribute to the success. But it's good to have that clear ownership, someone who's really responsible for driving the performance overall, even if it's outside of their direct span of control, that they still have influence over the performance. The definition is intended to make it really clear what we're measuring. So that is, again, for transparency. There's a lot of ways you can define customer satisfaction and some of the other metrics. So just being really clear about what actually is the definition and how it's going to be calculated. And then the information system. So identifying where that data is actually going to come from. Both helpful from an internal standpoint to make sure that there's clarity internally and continuity over time in tracking these. But again, also for transparency to the community. With that, I am going to stop talking and ask for comments, reactions, and any questions that you have for myself or for the LTD team in regards to any of the changes that have been made, or what you're seeing or not seeing in the plan. Yeah, welcome feedback.
And can I just clarify one thing that you said was that about the quarter two report out. That report out would actually take place in quarter three, probably at the February board meeting. Just to be clear on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right. So quarter closes, and then it takes a couple of weeks to get all the data compiled and work with the board cycle. So thank you, Tom. That's good clarity.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I can start if no one else has any immediate comments. I guess I'll start by just saying thank you and congratulations to everyone who's put a ton of time and energy and resources into this effort. It's exciting to see it all in one place after, talking about this for a year plus and you all actively working on it for months. So kudos on that. It's exciting. It was fun to kind of go through it and see it all together. I really appreciate, Lindsay, your effort to kind of note how feedback was addressed and incorporated into the plan. It's really feels good, I think, as an advisory committee member to actually see where that was incorporated and how, and even the ones that are kind of maybe surface level to an extent. I appreciated you all addressing that, and certainly appreciate all the time the staff have put into following up with stakeholders and really trying to get that feedback and input. Overall, I think, I like the cohesive design. I really like the value statements. I think in reading those, they seem quite powerful to me and true to LTD and what I've observed and know of the staff and leadership. So I really appreciated that. I think the level of detail, while for someone who is not a staff member nor a transportation expert or planner, I do appreciate the level of accountability it provides and a way to kind of track level of performance as a tool. I think we've all been excited about that since kind of the beginning of this process, the opportunity that kind of the scorecard and the metrics offer. to that point, I don't know if I necessarily feel equipped to speak to any of the like tactics and those kind of specifics that are included in the plan, since that is very kind of like the day-to-day work of staff, and I know they've engaged a lot in that process. So when I was reviewing this, I focused more on kind of readability, how the pieces all come together, especially for like a non-LTD staff member. Does one piece speak to another? Does it kind of make sense as a whole body of work as a interested stakeholder? So I might just start with some of my comments on that front. I have some other smaller notes, but I'll let other people speak to those as well. In reading this, I think there might be value in providing some sort of like executive version of it that really focuses on, the first 10 pages or so, where you're really getting mission, vision, values, kind of those core components. And then kind of here are the 5 strategic outcomes and the list of tactics that support those outcomes, but not necessarily like getting lost in the weeds of all of the kind of quarterly activities. I found myself getting a little lost, and it took me some time to like pull myself out and go to the next one. So I think kind of a shortened executive or kind of public facing version might be useful, just in terms of keeping people's attention on the big picture of what we're trying to communicate here. And I think in that end, the table of contents, it could use a little bit more of the like detail that you'll find in the report if there's not going to be an executive summary, kind of like here's how to navigate this document, and where you'll find those like summary pages of like here's the list of all the tactics, because I found those pages to be really helpful to kind of see how they tell a coherent kind of story together. The other big thing kind of on the same in the same vein is I found myself wanting like a goal statement while reading this. So we have the strategic outcome, we have kind of the measurement around it, but I was missing kind of like a sentence of like, what is LTD trying to accomplish within community value or within sustainability outside of just the metric. So I think just like that narrative element might be helpful to kind of tie it all together and again, tell kind of a cohesive story. And I think it's probably there in some of the like executive summary and the introduction letter, but really just like calling out goal statements, I think would have helped me personally with some of the readability. They're like kind of present on page 8, where there's like a short summary sentence of each strategic outcome, but they're not necessarily like written as goal statements. So that might be a place to do it, but yeah, I'll stop there. Those are kind of my big picture comments on like organization.
Can I follow up? Can I follow up?
Yeah.
Leah, so just that last comment. So it sounds like you're looking for, I mean, as you described it, a sentence that would articulate, obviously at a high level in one sentence, what it is LTD would be trying to do within that particular outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
What are you trying to achieve within financial health, within sustainability?
Right.
And I think it speaks directly to the strategic outcome. They should go kind of hand in hand.
Right.
But yeah, that like one sentence was just, I think would have helped me kind of understand the full picture.
Sure. No, that's helpful. Thank
you. And Leah, if I may ask, do you have a recommendation that could be added in so that, if this committee recommends this to the board for approval, that it could be amended to say with this statement, because that is what would be helpful?
Yeah, I feel a little hesitant to get into like wordsmithing of like what a goal statement would be.
And that makes a lot of sense. I do want to remind this committee this is LTD's first strategic business plan. So what I can definitely see is that these words, these phrases are not yet tested. So I do think that there can be some apprehension is like, what's missing, or are we missing something, or could it be said differently? And I will say a lot of that will be in search until it's tested. And that's really the heavy lift for this committee to say, how does what we're trying to accomplish align here and what was missing? So I think this is going to be a process that really allows this committee to be able to test how the success outcomes, the key focus areas, really deliver the quality service that this community is asking for. So that's completely understandable. And I believe you have a hand up.
Pete?
Sorry, had a little trouble unmuting.
Okay, great.
This looks really, really good, and I kind of have I basically have a really technical question more than anything about the as you've got this scorecard you got set up is obviously aligned with the actual fiscal year where it goes for Q1 through Q4, and it's in theory it's supposed to get scored at the end of the fiscal year, but as we're starting with Q2 and we're going to end up in all of the little things that they actually go through Q1 of next year. Yeah, excuse me. So I think that's going to be a little confusing to people in the public. I understand why it kind of ended up like that because of this the timing. And is it going to be in future years where we actually start at Q1 and just do this in this first year? We do the scoring with only the 3 remaining quarters. Does my question make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're asking. And yeah, it just happened to be that given that the board isn't adopting it until the beginning of the first quarter, we wanted to have a full quarter's worth of effort to report on. Obviously, we'll be starting to work on this as soon as we can. But the idea, Pete, would be to report on the 3 quarters this year and then start to do 4 quarters every year after that.
Okay, that answers my question. So we may just end up with partial completion of some of these tasks in this first fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll add just from other organizations we've worked with, you generally, Q4 will represent the end of the year. So that's your best, your best performance is what matters at Q4. So if you did really well in Q2 on a particular metric and it fell in Q4, it's not very helpful overall if you were higher performing in Q2 and then the trend went the other direction by the end of the year. So what it'll do is ultimately Q4 will be the most recent quarter will be the most important as you're looking to gauge how LTD is doing in these various areas. And then I'll also mention that this does take some time. There are some new metrics. So you might see, we often see it take 6 months, so a couple of quarters, if not a little bit more, to actually get all of the data in. So you may see Q2, there might be some, blanks in the reporting data. So I do want to just also kind of temper expectations that it will take some time in implementation to get all of the kinks worked out on the scorecard, but this is what the team is ultimately looking to populate fully for the next, certainly at least the next 3 years, but hopefully it will be a model that persists well beyond 3 years as well.
And just to follow up, one more question with regard to all this scoring. When will the public get to see how this gets scored and what the scoring results will be?
That would be, so this would, the plan would be to share this on the, there's a strategic business plan section of the website. So materials would be continuously posted there, not only the full plan, but also quarterly results. And then also, will be available through these public sessions. So in presentations to SPC and to the board, there'll be opportunities for the public to comment and ask questions in regards to that as well. And I know that the LTD team is going to be working on further communication strategies, how to utilize social media, how to utilize print media, and other formats to share what they're doing, not only just the results, but also how they're taking in the feedback that they receive through surveys, make adjustments, and actually listen and implement things as a result of that. So it will be incorporated into the implementation.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And Leah, I wanted to mention, I mentioned before, but your comments were well taken. So I think those readability, we do often do an executive summary that's similar to what you mentioned. So that's definitely something we can make available and can also be posted on the website as kind of a digest version of this if you don't want to get into the weeds. And the table of contents, I think that makes good sense. So, if someone's interested in going right to the mission vision, they can go right there. If they're interested in, the employee tactics or the community tactics, they can skip ahead. Those are good comments. Thank you.
Sorry, Philip here. I just had a quick question. While reading your mission, vision, and values, which are really great, I'm just curious as to the mission statement, and was it intentional to be that vague?
Yeah, I can start off with summarizing kind of the process around how it got here, but then Tom or others on the LTD team certainly chime in. It really distilled, there was a lot of work even before we were engaged, I know, around mission and vision statement. The team, through a why exercise, really went around and identified in just 3 words what really represents why they do what they do for the community. And through that exercise, looked at some other mission statements among other organizations, and ultimately wanted to have something that that really cuts to the core and it's easy to remember. And something we talked about and reflected about was that almost no one could really recite the mission statement before. And so it's, sort of on paper, and we had to have a sense of living our mission, but here, it's something that can really be easily accessible to the community and to the whole workforce. So I think those were some of the areas that really came up as it got distilled into a really concise and brief statement of the core of what LTD does and why they exist. Anyone else from LTD want to share? There's a lot of passion around the mission.
Yeah, I would just say, well, echoing your recounting of the process, Philip, we went through and in addition to coming up with this, as part of that process, we were looking at different mission statements and kind of talking about how to make it something that everyone gets at. And yeah, I'm a planner. I could add a whole lot more words to this to explain and try and articulate and all, but in the end, that sums up what we think our mission is to connect our community. And it you can look at that and you can start talking about it in all the ways in which you know, what it means to connect, you know, by way of the mobility that we provide and things like that. But that's kind of you know, the process is really what led to having something this concise.
Gotcha. Thank you. I was just very curious. That's all.
Sure.
This is maybe too in the weeds, like I like to be. But as I was reading through some of these, I was particularly looking at the sustainability tasks, I guess, around that. And I'm glad that there was a lot about the fleet, but I was sort of surprised that there wasn't anything about kind of operations. And I see that there's the COA that exists in the community value work plan, but I guess to some extent I see a value, and I don't know where this belongs or how to make this plain, but there's a lot of crossover, and there's going to be between those two areas, or those many areas of focus. And so there's also the community value. I can also see that having a lot of communications elements and how to wrap in the public. And so I don't know if necessarily that needs to be public facing, but maybe just thinking about those integration things on a staff level to kind of knit everything together.
That's a really good point. I know that's been brought up as is even, I think some of these have even moved. I think the COA might have been first put in the sustainability, if I recall. So there's definitely been some moving around of the tactics. Just like you're saying, they really do have components of a lot of these areas. And one of the ways I think the team is thinking about the COA, and Tom certainly add on to this, is that also these big strategic areas inform, you know, some of the planning that does and the priorities and criteria for making decisions. So I think sustainability would be certainly one of those areas that the COA would be, you know, prioritizing within what decisions are made. But Tom, do you want to just elaborate? I know you spent lots of time thinking about this.
Well, yeah, and you know what Lindsay said, Marianne, I think at the top of what she said was maybe the thing that I'll say we struggled with a little bit in terms of where do these things go. I mean, clearly some of those things that we have in community value are obviously contributing also to sustainability and vice versa. And so I guess yeah, I don't know how to. I mean, we needed to put them in certain areas just to make it. I think to organize it. It might be hard to follow if we said, well, you know, this tactic is addressing sustainability and, you know, like all 5 outcomes. And just the nature, I think, of a lot of things that we can do to provide for a more sustainable community are going to, you know, rest on some of these other things. You know, the extent that we can do things that start to increase ridership, that's a sustainability outcome. So, and I guess the only other thing I would say, because I mean, we could move things around, but I think in the end, you know, we probably want to go through this once and see kind of how things work, and we'll have an opportunity to learn from that experience and maybe have a better way of organizing it. But certainly, you know, I'm certainly encouraged with all the things that we have on the list to do here, and the degree to which they all end up having some kind of sustainability outcome. Not all of them, but many of them. And I don't know if that helps, but.
This is Jerry, and I wanted to jump in on that too. I mean, I was just looking here at the 2007 white paper on sustainable transit operations, and it's way broader than this component. And I understand what you're saying, Tom, but I mean, it's there. I remember going back and talking about what the whole footprint is, and so sustainable construction for capital projects, et cetera. And I'm just thinking that this is really too narrow for me, but that's what I'll say.
I guess what makes me feel a little better is that sustainability has 10 points associated with it on the scorecard, and the others have more points. So if they live in those other buckets, then those other buckets get greater weight. So to me, that's kind of how it evens out, that if they lived in the sustainability bucket, then they wouldn't have as much priority. So maybe the math works out.
I will just add, kind of in the same vein, that I was, Lindsay, if you could scroll to the scorecard, I was really struck in seeing the very last thing on the scorecard under sustainability is to increase ridership and get back to pre-pandemic levels, basically. And I certainly see the connection to sustainability in terms of more people on the bus, less people on cars, a great connection, but it felt very disjointed for me from the tactics that are within sustainability, which are really focused on emissions from LTD's kind of internal work, right? From the fleet, from fuel, et cetera. So it almost, I don't know, it just felt like it was a very important metric, but is very buried in, to Marianne's point, one of the lower priority strategic outcomes. So I don't know if I necessarily have a way to address that, but sustainability, to the way that both Jerry and Marianne are speaking to, felt a little bit disjointed for me in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, the overall goal there.
Yeah, and I mean, you said something in terms of that triggered some thought. I mean, part of it is, our overarching narrative with this whole structure is to be able to serve more people, and so the ridership increase is important to us, particularly from where we're sitting now. We want to, as we move into recovery, want to have people using our services, finding it useful, and that gets back to then why we have a primary focus in this 3-year period in increasing our customer satisfaction, because that's what's going to drive the underlying ridership, right? And again, at sustainability in a large sense, one of the most important things we can do is to increase our ridership. And that's why the ridership went under, and we had a conversation about this, that's why sustainability is where we put the ridership increase. But a lot of the things that we're doing to drive ridership increase is under customer satisfaction. And that's the interconnection that maybe we need more, some kind of description or narrative that can tie all these things together in that way. But I'd be interested in feedback on that.
For myself, I'm kind of comfortable with letting it stay where it is for a year and see how these things play out and how everything works together, and make changes if we need to. What I really don't want to happen is those sustainability things, particularly increasing ridership, to fall by the wayside. I don't think that's anybody's intention, so I'm not actually worried about it, but I think it does make sense to see how it goes for a year and see where the right spot is and kind of where in the workflow things should live. That makes sense to me.
Sure. Other feedback on that?
I guess one of the things kind of to this point, and as I'm kind of trying to not look into the weeds because I can, same as Marianne, get distracted. But one of the things that I appreciate about this is first of all, is the transparency so that our community is going to be able to see how these pieces fit together. So I love that, especially looking at a strategic plan. And then I think also when just looking at the scorecard and seeing sort of the areas, right? We have customer satisfaction and financial health and sustainability, that there is like cross-pollination of ownership within those. So, Tom and Matt are working together on the sustainability piece. So there's going to be these cross-pollination areas. And so I think to Marianne's point, like I'm hopeful and excited that because there are multiple people that are responsible for the sustainability piece, even though we might look at this and see there's a 10 points out of the 30 point or 10 points out of the total, still we have multiple groups working on that. And so anyway, there's just little pieces that for me, like in terms of a team working on something, we're not having this all siloed. There are a few areas that make sense, like the community value and employee engagement with HR, but we're really thinking about the other pieces. That's something that I really appreciate about looking at the scorecard, because kind of to Leia's point earlier, where it's like, this is where I went to and I was like, okay, this all kind of fits in here. So it's just, I really appreciate that. And I think that it's accessible for different people that are going to look at different parts of this and be able to kind of react and see what Lane County LTD is doing right now. So I'm excited for that. So thank you all.
That's helpful. That's helpful. And again, as we go through this for the first time, and we're kind of learning how to do it, as we get that part of it taken care of, we could start looking. And again, as we move forward, these outcomes will shift in priority. We stabilize our ridership. Maybe that moves down a little bit, but sustainability moves up as we start to increase our electric vehicle fleet, et cetera. Those kinds of things are what are going to drive how we look at the priorities. And as we proceed with this is where the board, SPC, the public can weigh in and say kind of where things belong. So that's helpful. Thanks.
Hey, Leah, can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Okay, you guys can hear me this time?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to thank everyone so far for your comments and your input. I'm, taking notes and listening because I think this is an important conversation. I want to make sure that I'm representing this committee when we talk about this at the board meeting next Wednesday. So all really great comments and good discussion. And thanks for taking an active interest in this really important part of LTD history and this monumental moment, right? Our first strategic business plan. So I just wanted to share my appreciation with all of you. And great comments, great questions.
Thanks, Caitlin. Are there other questions, comments, concerns from the committee?
Looks like Philip has his hand up.
Go ahead, Philip.
Oh, no, I didn't. I forgot to put it down.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
Yeah.
No worries. So I guess what I've heard, we've certainly praised components. We've had some discussion around how things fit together and how this plan will kind of evolve and we'll kind of work out where things shake over the next couple of years. I guess our larger discussion has been kind of around sustainability and what fits there. Is that ambitious enough? To Jerry's comment, I made some comments about kind of goal statements and readability. I know our intention today is to make a recommendation to the board for their meeting next week. So I guess I want to just stop and see if anyone has, I guess, any amendments or things that they want to include in our recommendation to the board that we want to specifically call out or make note of.
I don't think so.
Okay, thanks, both. Jerry?
I would say that table of contents was important, and your sense of whatever you called the summary. Those two things were probably most important to me.
The kind of executive summary, yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I guess I have a question, and Pete already alluded to this when he asked about making the scorecards available to the public when we get that information. But I guess I'm curious to have a little bit more information about what is the process internally for staff to go through this, because I'm thinking of all of the like performance reviews that I've had that are like, oh crap, it's the end of the year, we have to do this right this minute. And then it's sort of like a snapshot of last week and not a snapshot of the whole year or the whole quarter. And so I'm wondering, is there a benchmark at the staff level to say like, here's how we're going to keep track of this throughout the quarter and throughout the year? Because I think this is excellent work, and I know that everyone's worked really hard to make this be a useful document. And so to be able to keep engaging with it throughout the year, I think would be really important.
Yeah, and I can take that, Tom. I mean, this will significantly change the way we do business from now going forward. So, I mean, this is a roadmap to our future. It's going to tell us what we're going to measure, how we're going to measure it, how we're going to report it out to it, how we're going to do our evaluations, how people are going to understand what we're about, how we move forward, what success looks like, and the community will too. So, I mean, this is just a foundational document for how we move forward. And so, it's exciting, but it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, we've just created a platform for the future that's going to take a lot of work to create structure around and create the, evaluation processes around and really define our success for the future. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a start and the work really starts now.
I can also indicate, I think, Marianne, you made some really great points, is, will the scorecard be a reflection of the true work that's being done? I will say to be able to achieve some of these goals, it's not like writing a term paper that you can stay up all night and get it done, and they think you've worked on it for the last, 2 months. Meeting some of these performance standards is, like Mark says, is you have to start on day number 1, because you're not going to get there. I will tell you, every day you delay, like the likelihood that you're going to achieve those goals start reducing. I mean, if you just think about the safety performance, if you have a safety record and you're having accidents or you're not meeting those safety criteria, you can't tell everybody like on the last month, don't have any accidents, like you're already in the hole. So a lot of these and some of the financials and the environmental sustainability, LTD really cannot wait to meet a performance indicator to decide it's going to meet its sustainability goals, right? It's too late. We haven't bought the buses. We haven't taken the action. It's just not going to happen. So the nice thing about transit, it really is living these goals and values every single day, or you're not going to achieve it. And the scorecard cannot be tweaked. And I think that's the benefit of us hiring an outside firm to help us and not trying to do it internally. because then, you know, we can kind of be like, well, make sure we don't do this or that, because it's going to, you know, we won't be able to do it. And really just putting in these checks and balances and really coming before you at SPC, I really think it creates the structure that we really need to really report accurately back to the community. So hopefully that's helpful.
Any other lingering questions, comments, things you'd like to see before we make a recommendation?
Yes, Philip here. I have another question. While reading through this, I noticed that there's not much in the terms of employees and how dealing with, so I see manage employee turnover, but at the same time, I don't see anything about how you deal with disgruntled employees or how you deal with discrimination on that end in terms of like not being interacted with, etc. So I was just curious, is there something in manage employee turnover that would address those concerns?
And I can take that if you need want to. Yeah, so if you look, there's a lot of elements around employee engagement. And so employee engagement it includes all of that. You know, how do you keep employees engaged? How do you manage employees? How do you treat employees? How do you make sure the employees want to be here, right? And so all of those kind of things are rolled up in that employee engagement piece. So, and maybe, you know, every specific instance might be called out, but, you know, our goal around employee engagement is to have employees who want to be here and that we want them to be here. And so that's our goal around that.
Does that help, Philip?
It does help. I guess my main concern was that there isn't anything in this summary that actually would state like, hey, we are actually like pro-employee. Like I know we have all of this here, but I guess seeing it would actually be helpful for me at least. Especially if like you're trying to attract people to like come work for the company, etc. Like I think that there should be at least some part, even in like mission or value, vision, etc. Like just something to show like, hey, we understand these are the concerns and we'll address them moving forward here, here, and here, like further down.
So I think if I could speak to this a little bit, one of the things the team actually put a lot of thought into prioritizing employee engagement as actually the second highest weighted area, and really to achieve that that outcome requires that LTD is responsive, because they won't be able, you know, when they survey the entire workforce and that that outcome is completely reliant on the employee voice and actually the results of that employee survey, that they'll have to, in order to achieve those high enough scores, will need to be responsive to employee concerns, issues, and being really attractive place to work for employees. So I think that is really the way that the team has organized this to show that they can't be successful across on a comprehensive basis unless their employees are engaged, are satisfied, are being treated well, and then that's kind of emphasized in the GM letter as well.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Any final thoughts, comments? I don't want to rush anyone as we move towards the recommendation.
So
okay.
This is Jerry, and I will move that we forward the recommendation to the board with the comments that have been listed. And I don't want to just limit it to mine, but the table of content and an executive summary and other suggestions.
Alma, I second that motion with that.
Okay.
Same.
I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote here then. If there's no concerns about that recommendation. Okay, let me just look at my list here. Philip?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Cool. Alma?
Aye.
Marianne?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Caitlin?
I vote aye.
Okay. Jerry?
Aye.
Okay, this is Leah. I also vote aye. Counselor Evans, I see you on the line. Do you have audio?
I have audio. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we can hear
I'm gonna leave the video off. You don't need to see me anyway. Aye.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. I think that moves us forward. The motion passes to recommend this to the board. Caitlin, thank you for capturing and communicating some of our additional recommendations on kind of readability and some of the discussion we've had to your board conversation next week. Congratulations, everyone. Hey.
Yes, and if I could add something, Leah, just because I didn't hear it at the front and we had people coming on throughout this, but it did turn out that a full quorum of the committee is involved, and so we can move this forward.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and I'd just like
Excellent.
I'd like to thank the committee. I mean, you guys have been great sounding boards for us and really to bounce these things off of, and it's been just tremendously valuable to the process. And so thank you all for your time on this project.
Yes, thank you. I will echo that. Thank you everyone for your time. I know this has been a big focus for the year, and excited to see how the conversation goes at the board level. And again, congratulations to staff on all your work in pulling this together. I know it's been no easy task.
And I just add thanks for your flexibility in being able to join this meeting tonight and make this happen.
Anything else on the strategic business plan front? I want to wrap us up with a conversation about kind of like leadership within the committee. But before we go there, anything else on the strategic business plan?
You'll be hearing a lot more over the months. So.
Good, excellent. So I might hand this over here shortly to Caitlin or AJ, but we anticipate having elections for SPC leadership in August. Right now, Marianne and I are co-chairs, and I've been in this role for a couple of years now. I know we've talked with the board about kind of the best way to lead and structure this committee moving forward. So I'll kind of be a topic of conversation. I might throw it over to Caitlin to see kind of what comments or guidance you have.
Thanks, Leah. And really quick, I just want to acknowledge all the work you and Marianne have done, and thank you so much for your leadership. I just want to follow up and say that Leah and Marianne and I have talked a lot about what is most impactful for this committee. And first of all, we value everyone's time and know it can be a heavy load and a large commitment. So the two things that we wanted to share with you, one is that we are going to plan to move this committee to quarterly. And so hopefully that's still a schedule that will work with everyone. It still allows us to really touch on important topics and give recommendations as needed. And just making sure we're being the best stewards of everyone's time, because you all are very busy people. So feel free to give a head nod or a thumbs up if quarterly sounds good to you. So that's kind of the first change that we're going to be making. Camille's going to make changes to the bylaws for that. And the second change that we're looking at is making sure that there's a good bridge between this committee and the board of directors. So moving forward, we're going to establish one of the co-chair positions as a board member. For this next year, I have volunteered to do that. I think that Emily's got some other stuff going on, and unfortunately I don't want to volunteer her because we haven't been able to get her in the conversation yet. So I will sacrifice myself. Just kidding. I'm super excited to do it. I've really enjoyed being on this committee. I was super excited that I got to join, and I'm really looking forward to being co-chair. With that being said, Leah and Marianne have done a fantastic job. They are more than open to having another one of you be the co-chair with me, step up into that leadership position. There's no pressure. We absolutely can have a conversation about it. If you have questions about what that entails, what the expectations are, what are the time commitments outside of the meeting, reach out to me. Let's have that conversation. The great thing is, if no one on this committee feels like that's a commitment they can take on right now, our co-chairs are willing to continue to stay on now that we've condensed our meeting time and figured out a good plan for action moving forward. So the call to action for everyone in this group is think about if you want to co-chair with me for the next year, and think about that and decide if we want to have a conversation. You can also reach out to Mark or AJ or Camille or Tom, whoever you want to chat with, totally fine. But have that in your heads. And if that's something you're interested in, let's talk about that before we get to our August meeting. Leah, anything I missed?
No, I think that's great. And I think excited about seeing those changes moving forward. I think it'll allow us to be a little bit more focused and intentional with everybody's time. So appreciate everything from Caitlin jumping on and jumping into that role, and definitely encourage everybody to consider the opportunity, and certainly let me know if you have any questions that you'd like to talk through as well.
And for the three, let's see, Amy's not here, and Mike Eister and Franny, feel free to pull a joke on them and be like, oh yeah, we decided to go bi-weekly. and then you can soften the blow and go, just kidding, it's quarterly.
Just kidding, we nominated you as co-chair.
Yeah, right? That's what happens when you miss the meeting.
I just wanted to note, Caitlin, you mentioned Franny, and she did let me know she couldn't make it tonight. If you aren't familiar, the Area Commission on Transportation meets on this Wednesday every month, and that's her gig. So that's where she is tonight.
We can still play a joke.
Yeah.
But we won't be joking. She is the co-chair now.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. Is there any other comments, questions, concerns before we get wrapped up here? 30 minutes early.
I'll just say, as staff, I want to thank the committee. This has been certainly an adventure. We weren't sure collectively exactly what a strategic business plan was going to look like, but now we know. And Transpro has really helped us pull this together. Lindsay, it's been great to really have you along to help us understand what we're about to get ourselves into. So
Well, I will say thank you to everyone. It's been really fun, and we've really enjoyed the process. And we've never actually been able to engage with such an engaged group and actually be able to meet on a monthly basis. So really appreciate that. It was a really great process. This is a really great team that you have here at LTD. So really excited about seeing you all implement this.
Excellent. All right. Well, on that very positive note, I'll say good night to everyone and adjourn this meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.